Howdy everyone, it's Bob here. Yes, I know it's been a while. I've been caught up taking care of personal stuff, but y'all aren't here to listen to me talk about all of that. You're here to listen to me talk about the subject of the video, which is the Joker trailer. Now, I know I'm kind of late to getting on board with this. Everyone's kind of talking about Star Wars now that the teaser for that has come out, but I really wanted to talk about this, and I only recently got an opportunity to make a video about it, so I'm going to do some off-the-cuffs comments about what I saw. This isn't scripted or anything, so if it sounds a little awkward, that's why. I kind of just hit record and I went with it. But yeah, just want to go ahead and get my feelings. First off, I knew that they were making a film with Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. I'd heard about that, but I hadn't heard any of the details. I don't really keep up with modern films that much, but I did hear about it, and it sounded interesting. And then the trailer finally came out, and I decided to watch it for myself. And I saw some stuff that was really interesting. And I saw one thing, though, that did kind of irk me, and I'll get to that in a moment. First off, I'll mention that I like the cast. Joaquin Phoenix seems like an excellent choice. I was really impressed with the fact they got Robert De Niro. I was also impressed at how young he looked in that one shot. He was only in it for like half a second, but I was surprised at how young he looked. Big ups to the makeup crew, I suppose. I also thought it was kind of inspired that they got Robert De Niro, seeing as how I was getting some serious kind of Taxi Driver vibes from the trailer. I kind of feel like they were maybe pulling in that direction a little bit. I think they might be. I thought I remember reading somewhere that they were taking inspiration from Martin Scorsese for the Joker film, but yeah, we'll wait and see if that really is the direction they're going. Zazie Beetz is in it. I believe she's in Atlanta. Great show. Todd Phillips was another interesting choice for a director because he's done a lot of comedy films. When I heard that, I was thinking, oh, well, I guess maybe this Joker movie is going to be actually like a comedy, like they're making the Joker a genuinely comedic character, and I was interested in that. But no, that doesn't seem to be the direction they're going. They're kind of going for a sort of I guess you can call it a character study with a very sort of dark and sinister edge to it, which is fine. I guess that works too. So I was seeing a lot of things I liked. I liked the production. I liked the way it's shot. I liked the choice of music. They had the song Smile with this like eerie theremin instrumental in the background that worked pretty well. Again, fantastic cast. Everything looks good. There's just the one thing that kind of bothered me. The one thing I didn't expect, because like I said, I don't really research into this that thoroughly. But it's the fact that it's an origin story for the Joker. I really don't think the Joker should ever have an origin story. Now, before I get into why, I want to briefly mention why I think Batman, or rather his villains, are so interesting. And the reason the Batman villains are so interesting is that many of them kind of play off certain aspects of Batman or Bruce Wayne's personality. Like, for an example, you can look at Two-Face being this sort of perverse reflection on the duality that exists between Batman and Bruce Wayne. You can kind of view, say, what else would be a great example? Like how the Scarecrow is a perverse representation of how Batman uses fear as a weapon. You can, and I'm kind of stretching with this one. You can kind of view Mr. Freeze as being this perverse representation of how Batman, or Bruce Wayne rather, deals with tragedy, the tragedy of losing someone you love, and how that's how he uses that as a motivator in his work. And I think that's part of what makes these villains so interesting. And I think what makes Joker the most interesting villain, the sort of king of all Batman villains, is the fact that as a character, he's kind of the complete antithesis of Batman. For starters, Batman is known for having serious moral reservations about killing. Joker, not so much. He kind of just kills on a whim without even any reason for it. Batman is viewed as a very serious, stern, kind of stoic-faced individual, kind of very humorless. Not so much the Joker. He's normally very bombastic and outgoing, albeit in a very menacing and hostile way. But you get the point. They clash a lot in terms of personality. They even clash a lot in terms of how they look. When I think of Batman, and I'm sure why when you think of Batman, you think a lot of very, as far as like the color palette goes, you think blacks, blues, grays, kind of like a business suit almost. and it's usually almost solidly, almost completely that one color. Not so much Joker. You think of purples, and you think of reds, and yellows, and greens, and all these different colors, and they kind of clash in like a gaudy sort of way. They're both like the complete opposite of one another, and one of the things that really separates the two characters the most, I believe, is the relationship that the audience has with them. Now, the audience has a very intimate relationship with Batman. They know he's Bruce Wayne. They know why he became Batman. They know what motivated him. They understand his MO, his motivations, why he chooses not to kill. Also, why he, and this is one of the things that kind of upset me a little bit about the Zack Snyder films, why he has reservations about using guns, too. That's something I always kind of viewed as part of Batman's character, but you don't see that quite as often nowadays, at least certainly not in the film. So we have a very intimate relationship with Batman as the audience. We kind of know everything about him, which is interesting because Batman inhabits a world where very few people know anything about him. The Joker is the opposite. Typically, we don't know anything about the Joker. We don't know his name. We don't know where he came from. We don't know his motivations, even if he has any motivations. Often it seems like he does not. He just kind of does stuff because he wants to. So he's almost kind of like this mysterious force of nature. He just kind of comes out of nowhere and starts wrecking havoc. We don't know why. And he's very mysterious, and this sort of not knowing anything about him is part of what makes him a bit menacing, I think. And by creating an origin story, I think kind of removes the mystery. It kind of makes him maybe even a little less menacing. I don't think the Joker is a character that should be designed in such a way that he should come off as sympathetic. And an origin story does have the capacity to do that. Now, before I continue, I also want to mention that, yes, I understand this is supposed to be like a one-off film kind of thing. They're only going to do the one movie. It's not going to be part of any sort of greater DC extended universe canon or something like that. It's just going to be the one film, one and done. And also, it's supposed to take place in 1981, which kind of makes sense when you go and look back at the trailer because there's a lot of dated technology, a lot of dated fashions. So it does kind of make sense, at least in terms of like what I saw. I was like, man, why are they using all these old TVs? And I was like, oh, okay, that's why. It's because it's set in the early 80s. I guess that sort of makes sense. So yes, I understand it's a one and done thing. And I also understand that there have been attempts to make origin stories of the Joker before, both in film and both in the comics. But the thing is that there's no real universally accepted canon for the Joker in terms of what his name is, where he came from, etc., etc. There's a lot of people have been speculating over it, and there's different works of fiction out there with his character in it where people kind of tease about where he may have came from, if not sometimes actually explicitly creating a full backstory like this film is. And like I said, I guess that's okay, but still, I just think the Joker is more menacing when the audience knows nothing about him. I think that's part of the reason why the Heath Ledger performance worked so well, is because he really did come out of nowhere. Typically, for a lot of the other Batman villains in the Christopher Nolan series, we do get kind of a backstory. We learn about Ra's al Ghul. We learn a little bit about the Scarecrow. We learn a little bit about Bane and where they came from and their motivations. We don't really get that with the Joker in The Dark Knight. There was, of course, a few scenes where he comes up with a backstory, but then he keeps changing the backstory as it goes along. So it was like we can't ever be certain as to whether or not he's telling the truth or if he's just making it up. And here's one thing, while I was thinking about that, I did come up with like a little interesting thought. Like if they actually did this in this upcoming Joker movie, I would love this. I think that would really like completely make me do a 180 on my feelings here. And like I'm imagining in my mind, like the film kind of like begins at the end in a sort of like Usual Suspects sort of way, where like they already captured the Joker and he's down at the police station and they're questioning him, trying to get some information out of him. And then he's like, okay, I'll give you my story. And then that's when the film begins. We get like a flashback and everything, and all of the film is from there. It's told from his perspective on how he came to be and how he was motivated to do what he does. And it finally gets to the end after the big climactic moment where he finally gets caught, and then somehow, after he's done telling the story, he escapes from police custody. Like maybe there's an explosion or a shootout or something, and he just manages to escape, and then the police follow up on his story and then find out it's all bogus. Like maybe the whole thing about him having a mother or him having all these other careers he was doing on the side, he just made it up. Like he was just making stuff up just to screw with the police. And the origin story that we got in the whole film was just completely bogus nonsense. Like if they did something like that, like bravo, that would actually be pretty cool. I would like that. But that's just me speculating out loud. Even if that's not the case, it still looks like an interesting film. I kind of like character studies. I like films that are a little bit on the darker and the moodier side. I feel a little, I kind of have I'm tempted a little rather to roll my eyes when it seems to be implying that the reason the whole motivation, the motivational factor for this character become the Joker is because, society made me this way and all that, and that's kind of made me want to roll my eyes a little. It's like, oh, okay, so it's that's where they're going with it. All right. I'm so impressed. I haven't heard that one before. But still, that's just one of my only complaints, and it's not like an enormous complaint. Like, it doesn't completely turn me off of the idea of the film. I still think it looks good. I like the cast. I think they're going in an inspired direction. It certainly looks better than any recent DC film I've seen lately. I finally went to go see what was it? Justice League, not a few months ago. It was like on HBO, and I was like, oh, I never saw Justice League. I wonder if it was any good. And I turned it on, and I think I watched it for maybe about 30, 45 minutes, and I was like, I'm done. And I just pull up my laptop, and I start playing Dark Souls instead. I did manage to look up from my computer long enough to see the guy who played Cyborg say the line, "Booyah," after the big climactic moment when they beat the villain. That got a good cringe out of me. Yeah, thanks for that. But yeah, I haven't been too impressed with what I've been seeing out of DC lately. I heard that new Shazam movie wasn't too shabby. Maybe I'll check that out. That looked like it might have been kind of fun. But yeah, still, I think this idea of maybe doing standalone films that aren't part of some greater universe it might be the better direction for them to go in DC. Yeah, I know that it's really tempting to do the whole extended universe thing because Marvel's made so much money off of it, but just because it was good for Marvel doesn't necessarily means it's good for DC. If anything, not having an extended universe gives them more freedom to explore different ways to approach these characters and their stories instead of having to calculate whether or not this fits into like the larger picture, quote unquote, leading up to some big climactic movie event like, Avengers Endgame or whatever. So I think that would be a smarter idea. I'm interested in where it's going. Like I said, it seemed like a good film, and I'm definitely probably going to go see it when it comes out. It's just this one thing that bugged me. So please don't vote me down or call me an idiot or anything. Please don't be mean to me on the internet for having a discerning opinion. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. Like I said, it still looks good. It's just the idea of a Joker origin story that just kind of doesn't sit right with me. I'm curious to know what y'all think. Does the idea of a Joker origin story kind of bother you? Are you not concerned with it? I understand there's no reason to be concerned because it's not part of any greater canon, but it is pretty much the entirety of the story of the film, and that is something I'm factoring into it. But yeah, I'm curious to know what y'all's opinions are. Go ahead, leave a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you feel. More videos on the way soon. Hopefully I'll get to work on another Criterion critique very soon for y'all. Until then, y'all be good to each other, and I will see you in the next video.